Welcome to my channel. I am Dr. Pradeep Bhaval dealing with the subject of EU ETS. I hope you found my previous video useful. In the previous video we discussed about the greenhouse gas emission and its impact and introduced the concept of EU ETS. In this video we shall go one step forward. We shall be following the same question and answer method to understand this subject. So let's go. See the questions what we are going to deal with this. The first question is that what is cap and trade? This is the most important concept to be understood. Going ahead, how this policy is helping us. What are the common scenarios appearing in EU ETS? Is cap and trade better than the direct carbon tax? How this scheme is performing since starting of 2005. How the CO2 emission certificate price is changing. So let's see the first topic of what is cap and trade. Now cap and trade is the fundamental concept of EU ETS on the basis of which the entire system is developed. So whenever you go to the climate action website and then to ETS, the first topic you will see they will be explaining you the cap and trade. So let us understand cap and trade in a very simplistic manner. Now I will be also giving you the link to the description, so you can go to this website and can get much deep information about the cap and trade and EU ETS mechanism. So let us understand the cap first and then we will see cap and trade how it works. Now to explain the cap, I have drawn a picture, or rather post pictures, and I think you started understanding what the cap means. Yes, the cap is nothing but a target what we need to achieve. But the question is that how the target is fixed, which is not so easy and not so obvious. Let us see what are the steps is followed to decide the cap. First step is to satisfy the requirement of climate. That means you must have seen this graph and also something like a Kyoto Protocol and several other things. And these are all scientific research by which we can find how our climate is changing and what is the impact of current rate of carbon emissions in terms of temperature increase, and if we continue to do like this, how the situation will look like in near future and what should we do. All these things we can find by the scientific means. That what should be, but however all of us must be understanding very clearly that our ultimate aim is to zero carbon emission and eventually to reduce the carbon from our atmosphere. Now next point what is coming in front of us in terms of setting the cap is the technology. That means even though the climate scientists can set up a target that we should not emit beyond a certain limit, but there may be a kind of practical technological limit. That means whatever the best in class technology we use, we can find that what could be the technologically limit to reduce, or you can say reduce the carbon emission. And there are third thing comes in front of us, the administrative requirement, because if we are putting some law or some target, it will definitely have some impact on the trade, tax, funding, because we also need funding to implement or change the full technology to a more lower emission technology and so on and so forth. So by all this analysis, what is done, that EU ETS committee, or you can say commission, sits together with all the experts and then decides a target which we call as a cap. So cap is a complex mechanism to understand. That means to compromise between the climate requirement, between the technological constraint and also the administrative and trade requirement, and then we finally reach a cap which we need to achieve, which is the target, which is the ambition, whatever subject you can tell against this cap. Now if we go a little bit forward, just to give you a feeling that cap minus emission, if it is positive, that means if the emission is less than the cap, that means we are achieving the target, and if the emission is higher than the cap, then we are not achieving the target in terms of target of cap. But if we talk about in terms of trade, it is preferred that the cap is always below the emission, and then there will be demand, there will be circulation of business, and also all the parties will continuously try to chase the target, which is slightly difficult to achieve than the technologically the best technologically achievable target. Now, if we go forward to the next question, how this policy is helping us. This is I want to explain it by a very simple example. Let us see. I just draw a graph that how it looks like. That means here we are talking about emitter 1, emitter 2, emitter 3, emitter 4, and altogether is total cap. So you can see this is the actual and this is the permit, or you can say the allowable emission. So you can see that this kind of data are being captured, and which we can see that which emitter is better, which emitter is worse, and what is the overall level target at EU, and what is the overall target achieved. Now let us see in a very simple mathematical way how this policy is helping us. So let us take company A and company B. Now both of them, for example, both of them are producing steel. Now company A is producing for example 1 million ton of steel, and company B is also producing 1 million ton of steel, but the technology and methodology what company A is used is emission factor is 1.2 tons per ton of steel, for example, and the technology, or the company B, the technology may be very old, or their practice may not be quite good, they may not be using the proper type of raw material, and in that case their emission factor is 1.5 ton per ton, or 1.5 ton per ton of steel. Now we have a free allowances, so this free allowances stories I will tell in a coming videos. So you can understand that there is a subsidy of 1.3 tons of emission will be free of any cost. That means there will be free allowances, and beyond that this will be people need to buy the certificate. That means there is a cost, and this is free allowances is called the benchmark allowances, and this is same for across the industry. That means all the steel plant will have 1.3 ton of free allowances per ton of production of steel. And if we say the cost of CO2 permit is 50 euro per ton. So let us see how the simple mathematics looks like. Now in case of company A, if I do a simple maths, then we see that their emission, you can see their emission is less than the benchmark target. That means they are saving, they are below that, so they are getting more free allowances than what they need. So in this case you can see their difference will be almost like the cost of the difference will be almost like 5 million euro. So they can save 5 million euro. On the other hand, the company B, whose emission is more than the benchmark, they will be landing into spending emission will be more, worth 10 million euro. What does it mean? It means that company B is now to buy worth 10 million euro certificate from the market, and company A is able to sell 5 million worth of certificate to the market. So company A will be earning 5 million, company B will be spending 10 million. And you can see that this company B can buy 5 million from company A, but still they need additional 5 million. So this additional 5 million will be coming from the auction or from the authority, where the amount will go to the ETS authority of the particular country as well as EU. So that's how the the cap and trade is working. And I'm saying helping means that these guys who have earned 5 million, he will be encouraged to invest more, to develop better and better technology, to save more and more. Similarly, this guy, the company B, who has spent 10 million euro, will be very careful not to spend 10 million euro. Instead of that, they will be spending to develop their own system, develop their own technology, so that the emission is less. So all the way, company A will be encouraged to emit less, company B will be penalized, and they will be encouraged to emit less, and at the same time there will be some money will left to the authority which can be spent for subsidy, or at the same time supporting the different research and development project. So I hope you understood this very simple thing. If you still have a question, you can write to write to me. Now let's go to the next questions. What are the common scenarios appearing in EU ETS? I introduced this topic because if you don't understand different scenarios, maybe some of the numbers appearing in front of you may not be clear to you and you may not get the right perspective of the numbers which is coming in front of you. Now let us see what are the scenario can appear. So now first scenario is emission reduction target is achieved. That means the emission is less than the cap. Now how it is happening? What are the different scenario? One scenario is the real emission reduction took place. Really everybody has improved, technology has worked, and then fantastic, we changed the emissions and then we achieved the target for a particular year or particular period. Now second situation can happen, the reduced production and the reducing the emission. That means we have not actually improved any technological means, but simply cut the production. Maybe we ship the production from Europe to China or to Brazil, wherever it is, and then what we have that we can globally we can see that there is a less emission in Europe, but globally it is not the less emission, it is just cutting the target from one place and going to another place. So it can have a like permanent reduction of capacity or shifting production to the place where there is no carbon tax. Now some of the emitter improved and some of their emission is below target and some of them could not. So overall things have become target is achieved, but it doesn't mean that everybody has improved. Some of them have improved fantastically and others did not improve, but overall it shows the improvement. And another scenario can happen in this situation if cap and target and emission is met. So there is no shortage, the allowances are just fit to satisfy the requirement. In that case, price of CO2 will be also stable because price is following exactly the economical rule. That means the supply and demand. If the supply is less, demand is more, then price will go up. Now if you go to the different scenario that when the emission is higher than the target, so in that case, excess or surplus emission from the past can be used to make up the gap, because we are showing, okay, so this can be gap, and then government issue additional allowances at a premium price. So if in the first scenario we have a lot of free allowances from the past, so the CO2 price will remain stable. In second case, there is already a crisis or a shortage is created and the price will go up and the government has to issue additional allowances to meet the demand. Now third thing is that a dramatic reduction of capacity can take place. This is also possible. Why I am saying all these things, I will show you some graph, then it will be easier for you to correlate them. Now in this case, in this situation, there will be a lot of free allowances available because allowances are already given and suddenly production was reduced, and in this case the CO2 price can crash. So these are the general scenario which can happen, and I will and you will understand that why I explained this just now in the next question. Now question is that is cap and trade better than the direct carbon tax? Okay, these scenarios you will understand how this scheme is performing, and question 5 and 6. Let us look into the question 4. That this is also important. There are several people are asking that, okay, there are several countries who are following direct tax on carbon, and EU ETS is in European complex systems, and what is good and what is bad. Let us see the comparison here. If we see the carbon tax, I was just showing like a tax matters. Both of them are having tax, but they are different mechanism having their own advantages and disadvantages. Now in carbon tax methodology, the price is decided by the authority. Principal is covered by the social cost due to climate change. So how the tax is decided, because if the climate changes, there will be a lot of storm, lot of natural disasters, and the cost of the government will go high, and the government will recover this cost through the carbon tax, because the whole thing is happening due to the carbon. On the other hand, in cap and trade, price is decided by the market. So the authority doesn't decide the price, authority only set the target, and then the price is determined by the performance. If somebody wants to perform more, basically earn through that or reduce their cost, in that case, in lieu, they must invest in developing the technology. So this is the main difference, where the authority is deciding the price. Here the authority is deciding the target or the emission quantity, not the price. Price is determined by the market. Now both of them helps reducing emission, because the moment people are spending money, they will be careful whether you are having direct tax or you are having cap and trade. So both of them are helping to reduce the emission, as well as getting some revenue to the market, to the government, so that government can spend them for improvement projects. Now next is the impact on carbon reduction is uncertain. That means here it's only the price is important. Whether the actual reduction is taking place or not taking place doesn't matter, because people can keep on emitting and just paying the tax. Now in this case, quantity can be determined by the scientists or in a scientific way, as I was explaining how the cap is done. And next comparison is that if the price is not determined well, either it shall increase the emission or reduce the emission. If the price is too low, then people just don't care, keep on emitting, because the cost of emission is very low. On the other hand, if the cost of emission is very, very high, then it may have a severe impact on the trade, because the cost will be very high, and a particular country may not be, industry in a particular country may face severe competition in the global market. Now in the other case, the number of permit is controlled irrespective of the price. Now this policy, if we come to the carbon tax again, this policy is very much to the local government, because its tax is purely a local government tax policy. And this credit allowance is basically a certificate. It's something like a money which can be also traded internationally. That means that somebody from outside can buy a certificate of another country or outside the EU and can invest in carbon trading. It's possible. It's like an investment. Somebody can come from America and can buy certificates and then treat it as an investment. Now funds are raised by direct tax, and funds are raised by auction. That means the selling of free allowances is the fundraiser for cap and trade, but here it's basically direct tax. Now direct tax is very easy to administer, because whenever you are emitting, you are just paying the tax. That means emission is measured by in terms of consumption of carbon fuel or fossil fuel. The moment you are consuming fossil fuel, that means you are automatically emitting the proportional amount of consumption. Now in this case, the administration is a bit complex, because EU ETS is not directly depends on the consumption of fossil fuel, but it's a great deal of things. But it also a very complex mechanism to monitor, because there is a monitoring plan, and then there is a annual audit, and the whole informations are collected to the EU level, and there is a free allowance. So the whole mechanism needs quite a significant amount of administrative need. Now there can be several arguments to pass the tax law. That means whenever you are passing a tax, in the parliament or in the government, there will be lot of arguments, lot of discussions, and then the price is decided. But in this case of cap and trade, we don't talk about the price, so it is easier in that case to change the target or make it more difficult target, less difficult target, something like that. Now generally the price is stable, means once the tax rate is decided for a particular period, I think it doesn't change. But in cap and trade, price changes, because it depends on the market, and only the quantity is controlled. So the price can vary depending on the situation. If suddenly the industry crashes, for example, there is economic crisis or whatever it is, the carbon price can fall dramatically. But in the carbon tax, it remains same. It is not depending on the market situation. Now this scheme, carbon tax, can also generate a lot of revenues, and this cap and trade can also generate a lot of revenues. Both of them can generate revenues in a different mechanism. Now tax can be implemented to any kind of emission which is there. It's not only carbon emission but any other type of emissions. But so far cap and this EU ETS are mostly focused on CO2 emission. But nowadays it's also getting expanded to the other area, and we already started talking about CO2 equivalent. once we are talking about the global emission, then like methane and etc. is converted to CO2 equivalent. That means, say for example, if you emit 1 ton of methane, what will be the equivalent damage by equivalent amount of CO2? So that's called the CO2 equivalent. But this is how it's being measured. So this gives you a general idea and comparison between carbon tax and cap and trade. Now question is that what is a good policy? Which policy should have a better impact and we can do it? Now, in my opinion, there can be a mixed approach, because two policies are good in two different situations. For example, the direct tax, where it's a small consumer and it's very difficult to administrate this emission trading system. For example, I am driving a car. Now, for all the car owners, if we need to file a carbon emission the same big procedure, then it will be really difficult for everyone and it will land into a lot of administrative cost. Instead of that, it's a direct cut. The moment I am using more and more petrol, I am automatically not only paying for the cost of the petrol, but I am also paying for the CO2 emission. So I should be careful to maintain my car. I should be able to tune the engine regularly so that my fuel consumption is minimum. So ultimately I save money. But if you talk about big industry like steel plant or petroleum industries or cement industries, this kind of things, EU ETS is more effective, because it has a big encouragement in terms of big penalty as well as incentive. So incentive and penalty schemes pushes this industry to better, because it also introduces internal competition between two cement plants, between two steel plants. So this internal competition also helps to accelerate the change of technology to a low carbon technology. So let's go ahead further. Now, how this scheme is performing since 2005, to give you an idea. So now I have taken some data from the European Environmental Agency, so which are showing the reduction of overall emission in the European zone, EU zone. So you can see, which is a very good information, and there is some forecast that which will keep on going further. And finally, our aim is to reach a zero emission in 2050. This is a kind of target which we are talking about. But it doesn't mean that really this emission came from technological improvement. There may be several loss of capacity, which is also help us to reduce the overall emission in the EU zone. Now, let's look into the next interesting part, that is the price, how the price have changed over a period of time. So I have given you this target from Emission Trading company. So it's investing.com, from where I have collected the data. You can see initially the price was around 20 plus. So that's how the initial introduction, and it was expected that this will remain like that. But it started falling a little bit in a couple of years because possibly the amount of certificate issued was far too much. It was not. It was very. It was a beginning, so there was no experience. So possibly over certificate was given. Maybe not much of tightening was there. But then suddenly 2007 came, and you can see that it has fallen. Now this fall is due to huge capacity loss, not a permanent loss but a temporary loss, because 2007 was a big economic crisis, and in this crisis many companies start producing much lesser, and but their allowances were based on the previous year's capacity. So in that case they received the allowances based on the capacity, but it was not utilized. So since the supply was more than the demand, and at the same time there was also economic crisis, so it fell down. But as soon as the economic crisis is over, then prices again jump back. But then it is again plateauing, because this is the point of time where the production did not pick up really very well. And not only that, from all the previous time, there was a lot of free excess allowances which is fallen into, which was being traded into this region, and then the price really did not go up. But from 1819, the thing is that most of the company has finished their reserve of CO2 certificate, and then this price has started going up. And after 2020, the NAP4 came and the free allowances benchmark value was reduced, as well as there was a market stability reserve. So those things took place, and in that case, the free allowances really, as we were discussing before, the cap should be lesser than the emission, so that there is always a pressure to perform more, and there is a price proportional to the demand and supply. So you can see after that the price really shoot up to 2023, 2024 beginning, and then price have again started going down because the industry outlook is not great. But during this time, it really went above 90. So this is some days it was above 90, almost touching 100 euro. And this was really good encouragement, one hand, to the investor who is investing on this kind of carbon reduction program. On the other hand, it has a negative side because it is pushing up the production cost. So maybe the European industry will become less and less competitive in terms of global market, because they have to carry the additional cost if this cost is not there for the other countries. Now, this is what I told is being written over here, and so this is how the price have changed. So I think we have come to an end, to the last questions, that with all these things, what is the trade-off? That means in the EU ETS mechanism, what we are actually gaining overall, and what is the risk or what we are losing. So I'm just summarizing the key important point. So in terms of gain, that increase the incentive to the emitter, the low emission, and increase the revenue to the EU administration, more support to R&D. So these are the positive things in terms of the EU emission trading system. In terms of negative thing, the production cost is going up. In the thing, the European companies can become less competitive, and less competitive in European market because they have to compare with the imports from the country where the emission may not be so great. And this is actually imposing risk to the industries with higher emission production systems. So for example, steel, which is having a very high emission factor, so almost like a 2 ton per ton of steel. So they are at a big risk if the CO2 price is going up. So to tackle, so this is an important issue. So to tackle this, the EU Commission is seriously debating on that, and they have already published this mechanism, which is called Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. So things are going on in this direction to compensate this. In one hand, we want to keep the CO2 price high so that there will be enough fund available to buy the low emission technology or convert into low emission technology. On the other hand, we don't want to have an impact on our own industry. So this mechanism is called Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. In coming videos, in one of my coming videos, I'll be going in detail about this Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. So in summary, we explained what is cap and trade in a very simple way, and we also talked about the performance in terms of the comparison between the direct tax as well as EU ETS, and we also talked about the emission and some future forecast, and the positive and main positive and negative side of the EU ETS. So if you have any question, please feel free to write to me to the emissiontrading.pb@gmail.com. I shall be more than happy to answer your questions. So let's make our Earth better. Thank you very much for your time, and hope to see you again in the next video. For the timing, goodbye.